each year. We're currently working with just over 40 law firms who will be embarking on their next recruitment round this autumn for recruitment starting around about September 2027. We expect there to be somewhere north of 130 people recruited into London, and more than that if we include other cities. in2 is a programme that we have put together following guidance from government, in particular the Careers and Enterprise Company, who have highlighted the need for work experience for students, in particular those around the sort of year 10, 11, 12 mark, and that work experience is lacking. And so this is our attempt to provide some sort of response. We've taken a fairly loose approach to work experience, and we've converted into exposure to what work is like. We've made it online and remote so that people that are not based near our offices, so away from the City of London, wherever that might be in England, Wales and Scotland, can access this facility. in2 is a 10 10 module program, and this is number 5 out of 10. To date, we have had what is London? What is the City of London? What business does the City of London do? And what is city law about? This is number 5. We will run to the 8th of July. I think it's the 8th of July, Wednesday, or maybe it's the 10th of July, Wednesday, and that will be item number 10. We've held it a steady 50 or so coming through this programme, so that's great. We have targeted this programme at year 10s, but 11s, 12s and 13s are also invited. If you haven't already looked at our City Century website, we'd very much encourage you to do that. There is virtual work experience on there in association with Forage. That programme is called City Century, and I'd also encourage you to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, but most importantly, please follow us on our LinkedIn page, which is very discoverable. We post on LinkedIn several times a week, and one of our main pillars of posting is to assist people going through the application and recruitment process. We give you lots and lots of hints, tips, strategies, tactical advice there. I'm delighted that we have RPC today. We have Steffi, Alexandra and Amraj, who are going to take you through their topic area. I'm now going to hand over to Finley, who is our project executive, for him to introduce you properly to today's session. Thanks very much. I'll be around for the rest of the session, but I will come on camera.
Thanks, Patrick. Welcome, everyone. Really impressed with the continued engagement for everyone, as we've sort of told you before. So episode 5 today, you are doing exactly the right thing by being here on what is, I'm sure, a very warm Monday evening. I know it certainly is where I am. Just a couple of notices. If you're having any issues with your links at all, which a couple of you have emailed me about, we've managed to rectify those. So just email me at my office at City Century email address, which is on the website. And you should all have as well from the invites that I've sent out. As Patrick said, we're finishing on the 8th of July. That timetable is all on the email as well, so you can see when every session will be, so you can come to as many as you can. Currently looking at our attendees for today, most of you are on for your certificate of attendance that I've been tracking you throughout. So remember, you need to have attended at least 8 out of the 10 sessions to receive that certificate of attendance. And the last thing I'll say is just to continue to use the Q&A function, which I can see you are already on with. Someone's asked about the schedule, so that is in your initial email. So if at all RPC want you to be interacting with the session today, let's do that through the Q&A function, not the chat function. Otherwise, a massive thank you and a big welcome to RPC. I'll pass over to you.
Great, thanks very much, Patrick and Finn. Right, I will share my screen. Okay, fab. Yeah, so good afternoon, everyone, and a big welcome. My name is Steffi, and I work in early talent at RPC. My role is to help attract, recruit, and support people at the start of their careers, including our solicitor apprentices, our trainees, work experience students, and summer placement students. So today is all about helping you understand what city law firms are actually like, who works in them, and some of the different routes into a legal career. Also joined today by 2 of our solicitor apprentices, so Alex and Amraj, who will be sharing their experiences throughout the session and helping to bring some of the topics to life. Okay, so before we get started, here is a quick overview of what we will cover today. So first, we'll explain what a city law firm actually is and how law firms are organised. We'll also look at some of the different careers you can find in a law firm, and you may be surprised that it isn't just lawyers. Alex and Amraj will also share their experiences as solicitor apprentices and tell you what life at a city law firm is really like. And we'll finish with some myth busting and leave some time for questions at the end. So hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have a better understanding of what city law firms are like and some of the different kind of routes into the profession. So before we tell you anything about law firms, we'd love to hear from you. So if you could put into the Q&A box, perhaps, when you think of a lawyer, so what comes to mind at first? You can see 5 options on the screen, so you could pop the number into the Q&A, or if you have something completely different in mind, feel free to share that too. Mhm. You on courtrooms, 2. Yeah, suits. Oh, yep, another word for discipline. Yeah, you do need to be very disciplined. Hopefully it's good fun as well along the way. Paperwork, yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, we try and do a lot more, obviously, kind of moving towards the online world, but yeah, indeed. Great, yeah. Courtroom, corporate lawyers, litigation, fab. Okay. Yeah, so I suppose in terms of the answers on the screen, or yeah, and what you've all said. So yeah, they're probably the answers that you kind of hear, most often. And before I worked in early talent, I'm sure I would have kind of said, very similar things myself. What's interesting is that some of these answers are only kind of partly true, like what's on the screen here. So lawyers do sometimes go to court, and many do wear suits, and TV dramas occasionally get things right. But the reality of working in a law firm is often quite different from what people expect. And one of the reasons we're running this session today is because there's a lot of myths about lawyers and law firms. So many people think all lawyers spend their days arguing in courtrooms, but it's not actually the case for everyone. In fact, many city lawyers never actually go to court at all. Lots do, but many do not. Okay, so we'll start with the most basic question of all. So kind of what actually is a city law firm? So a city law firm is a business that provides legal advice to other businesses, organizations, and sometimes governments. So for example, a company might want to launch a new product, enter a new country, buy another business, or resolve a disagreement with another organization. And lawyers can help them do that. And number 2, so working on contracts, disputes, transactions, and regulations. So those are all quite technical words, but really this means helping clients make important decisions, solve problems, and manage risks. Supporting clients all around the world and in the UK. So many city law firms support clients, not just in the UK, but all around the world. You might be sitting in London, helping a client in New York, Singapore, Dubai, or Sydney. So yeah, there's lots of global firms out there. City law firms employ lawyers and many other professionals. So another thing that surprises people is how many different jobs exist within a law firm. So it's not just lawyers. There are people working in IT, finance, HR, marketing, risk, business development, and many other teams. And we will come back to that later. Offers different routes into law. So city law firms also offer lots of different routes into the profession. So not everyone follows the same pathway, including solicitor apprenticeships. They're obviously very kind of on the rise now. So like the one that Alex and Amraj are completing, and they'll tell you more about soon. And then lastly, solving problems and helping clients achieve their goals. So if you remember just kind of one thing from this slide, it's this, that lawyers are essentially professional problem solvers, and clients come to them with challenges, and lawyers help them find solutions. So now we know what city law firms do. The next question is kind of why do people choose to work in a city law firm? So the reality is that everyone will have slightly different reasons, but these are just some of the things that attract people to working in city law firms. Firstly, interesting work. One of the biggest reasons is that no 2 days are the same. You might be helping a client launch a product, resolve a dispute, buy another business, or respond to a new law or regulation. So always sort of varied and interesting work. Teamwork. So despite what some TV shows might suggest, lawyers don't spend all day working alone. Most of the work is done in teams. You work with colleagues from different departments and often with people from other professions as well. Problem solving. A lot of legal work is really about problem solving. Clients come to you with a challenge, and your job is to help find a practical solution. Variety, there are lots of different practice areas and specialisms in law firms, and some lawyers work in technology, some in media, some in employment, insurance, real estate, or disputes. It's really, really broad. So there are lots of different career paths depending on your interests. And what's great about the training programs, so like graduate training programs or apprenticeships, is that you can get exposure to lots of those different areas and kind of start to narrow down the areas that might interest you. Helping clients. So ultimately, clients come to law firms because they need their help. So whether that's protecting their business, resolving a problem, or achieving a goal, lawyers play an important role in supporting them. And lastly, career opportunities. So law firms also offer lots of opportunities to develop your skills and progress your career. And there are lots of different entry routes, including apprenticeships and opportunities to take on new responsibilities as you gain experience. Okay, so we've talked now about what city law firms are and why people choose to work in them. But not all law firms are the same. There are lots of kind of differences between different kind of city law firm types. So Alex, I will pass to you to jump in for this slide.
Thanks very much, Steffi. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alexander Polashek, first-year solicitor apprentice with RPC based in the London office. So we've talked a bit about what city law firms are and why people choose to work in them, but here's something that might surprise some people, is that not all law firms are the same. So just like there are different types of schools, sports teams, and businesses, there are different types of law firms as well. And they can roughly be categorized into 4 types of law firms. So on one end, we've got global law firms, such as Clifford Chance. Those firms are usually part of the Magic Circle group, which is an informal group of 5 law firms, which carry a lot of prestige within the city. These firms have offices all over the world and often help large businesses involving teams from several parts of the world. For you to have a sense of how large some of these law firms are, Clifford Chance, for example, have over 3,000 lawyers in over 30 offices, I believe. Now, the benefits of working at such a large firm is that there's very strong brand recognition and there's a very clear and structured learning program available to you. One of the drawbacks, which I can think of, is that hours can be very long and very unpredictable. Secondly, we've got international law firms that you can think of it as, for example, RPC. So here at RPC, we work with a lot of different types of clients across a range of sectors and legal specialisms. For example, we might advise a technology company, insurers, so think of AXA and other insurance companies, retailers, and also media businesses as well. One of our biggest clients is also the Financial Times, for example. We do have a smaller global footprint in comparison to global law firms. But one of the biggest selling points of working at RPC is that there's plenty of opportunities to work directly with partners because we have a smaller trainee cohort intake in comparison to global firms. Moving along, we also have boutique firms like Quinn Emanuel. These firms tend to focus on doing one area of law exceptionally well. For Quinn Emanuel, this will be helping clients resolve disputes and complex disagreements. So their specialism is litigation and arbitration. The benefits of working at a boutique law firm includes being recognized as experts within a certain field. However, a drawback of boutique law firms is that there are very few early talent opportunities. Joining boutique law firms usually becomes available once you have become a qualified lawyer. There are a few reasons for this. One of them, for example, some boutique law firms have a very small revenue, and this means that they might not have the funds to train trainees every year. But I think in the case of Quinn Emanuel, their business model is more focused on hiring already qualified lawyers from competitor law firms rather than growing home talent. And then lastly, we also have regional law firms such as Irwin Mitchell. So these firms often have strong connections to particular parts of the UK and work with a mix of businesses and individuals. And this is where you might see law firms practicing, for example, family law. And also regional law firms are an excellent firm to work for if you do not want to work in London. Not every lawyer wants to work in London. Some prefer working in smaller cities, perhaps Liverpool or Manchester. Regional law firms have a great footprint in such areas. Now, a quick question for everyone. If you had to choose right now which firm you would want to join, which firm would you like to join? I suggest that, as previously mentioned, please use the Q&A option to pop your answer in the chat.
RPC. Interesting.
One thing to point out is, don't worry if you're not sure yet. Most lawyers don't know what type of firm they'd like to work for when they're in year 11. I certainly didn't.
Yeah, and I think there's no, right at, like, obviously, yeah, it's just unique to everyone, isn't it? There's no kind of right or wrong with this. It's just absolutely, unique to every person and what would kind of be in line with where you're wanting to progress your career.
Indeed. But regardless of the type of law firm, they all need lots of different teams and people working together to support the clients. And so let's take now a look at how a typical law firm is organized.
Thanks, Alex. Okay, so yeah, most city law firms are made up of two kind of broad groups. The first are the legal teams, so often called practice areas. And you can see a list of just some examples on the left-hand side. So these are the lawyers who work directly with clients and provide legal advice in different areas of law. So just some examples there. Commercial litigation. So these lawyers help clients resolve disputes and disagreements. Corporate lawyers help businesses buy, sell, or merge with other companies. Banking and finance lawyers support organizations when they borrow, lend, or invest money. Employment lawyers advise employers and employees on workplace issues. Real estate lawyers help with buying, selling, and developing buildings and land. Insurance, an insurance lawyer protects people and businesses when things go wrong, dealing with large amounts of money in accidents. They act as the legal experts who handle the rules, arguments, and payouts connected to insurance policies. And technology and media, so lawyers in this particular kind of practice area advise on things like social media, data, AI, and digital products. The important thing to remember is that lawyers do far more than, just kind of being in court. There are lots of different specialisms depending on your interests. And along the right-hand side are support functions, sometimes called business services or business support or similar sorts of thing. A law firm's a bit like a school or football club type thing. So the people that you see on the pitch or in the classroom aren't the only people who are making it successful. A law firm would really struggle or could not really function without the people in the support functions. So the support functions teams might not provide legal advice themselves, but they play a hugely important role in helping the firm operate successfully. So HR / kind of people teams help recruit, support, and develop employees. So my team in early talent, we sit within the HR and people team. IT teams, they make sure that everyone's technology works and helps protect information and systems. Marketing and business development teams help promote the firm and build relationships with clients. Finance teams manage invoices, payments, and budgets. Risk and compliance help make sure the firm follows rules and regulations. And lastly, facilities, they kind of have the real ownership and kind of oversight of what's going on in the physical sort of buildings and offices, that sort of thing. And without these teams, the lawyers simply could not do their jobs effectively. In fact, some people spend their entire careers working in law firms without being lawyers. So yeah, lots of examples of those types of people. So looking at these teams, which one maybe sounds the most interesting to you and why? So, is it that you would lean kind of more towards a practice area because you think you'd like to follow a career in law, or is it actually that you'd like to be in kind of the law environment, but maybe more in like a sort of finance type role or in a sort of people role? Any thoughts? Anyone could put them in the Q&A. corporate commercial education, real estate, interesting. Yeah, some broad experience there. Practice areas. But practice like the area of banking and finance. That's good. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, well, hopefully, and it just shows kind of then this is only a snapshot, obviously, of the amount of different practice areas that, many law firms can have. So just kind of a snapshot here, but that's what I mentioned before about the great thing about training is that you can get exposure to lots of these different areas and sort of narrow down what might be a particular area of interest to you. Yeah, corporate M&A, more international, possibly cross-border work. Interesting. Thank you very much. Okay, so now just wanted to kind of break that down a bit further. So now we've looked at how a law firm is organized and the different departments that exist within it. But what about the people who are actually kind of working in those teams? So if we take a look at some of the different careers you might find in a city law firm. So on the left-hand side, on the legal careers side, some examples of legal careers, and you'll notice that as lawyers gain experience, their responsibilities change over time. So partner or of counsel role at the top there. So partners are some of the most, and of counsel are some of the most senior lawyers in a firm. They lead client relationships, oversee legal work, and help shape the direction of the business. Senior associates are experienced lawyers who often manage work streams and support more junior lawyers. Associates are qualified solicitors who advise clients, draft legal documents, and help manage legal teams. Trainee solicitor/solicitor apprentice. So trainees and apprentices are learning while gaining practical experience. They work on real client matters while developing their legal knowledge and skills. And lastly, paralegals. So paralegals provide important legal support and help legal teams with research, document management, and administration. So you can see there the kind of typical career path that you might follow if you join a law firm as either a paralegal or a trainee, and you can see the sort of typical progression up there. So business services. So as we've mentioned, law firms aren't made up of lawyers alone. On the right-hand side, there are examples of business services careers. So IT, just kind of included some typical job titles there, but IT teams obviously help keep systems running and help colleagues use their technology safely and effectively. People in talent development, helping to train and support and recruit employees throughout their careers. Marketing, help promote the firm and build relationships with clients. Finance, helping the firm manage invoices, budgets, and payments. And risk and compliance, helping teams make sure the firm helping teams make sure the firm follows rules and regulations and manages potential risks. So, key thing really to remember is that no one person could, obviously run a firm really on their own. Law firms rely on lots of different people with different skills working together. Okay, so now that we've seen some of the different careers that exist at a law firm, let's see if you can work out who does what. So Amraj, I will pass to you.
Yes, hello everyone. So my name is Amraj, and you guys have now learned about what different roles there is in a law firm. So what I will do is I'll read out the descriptions, and if you can put in the Q&A box what role you actually think that is. So we'll start off with number 1. So this person is learning whilst working towards a qualification. They work on real client matters and receive training from experienced lawyers. Their typical day might involve legal research, drafting documents, and attending meetings. And they are at the start of their legal career. So who do you think that is? Ooh, so a lot of you are saying apprentice. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, that is correct. That is correct. So moving on to number 2, they are a qualified lawyer who advises clients on legal issues. They draft legal documents and help manage transactions or disputes. They work with clients and colleagues across the firm, and every day can bring a different challenge. So who do you guys think that is? Okay, yeah, associate lawyer. Any other guesses? Ooh, okay, someone said partner. So that is actually an associate. Yep. And moving on to number 3. So they lead client relationships and oversee important legal matters. They help develop business opportunities and support junior colleagues. They play a key role in shaping the firm's future, and they are one of the most senior people within the firm. So who do you guys think that is? Partner, everyone's saying partner. Yes, yeah, you're correct on that one. Then moving on to number 4. So this person helps colleagues use technology safely and effectively. They solve technical issues and keep systems running smoothly. And they work behind the scenes, but many people within the firm rely on them every day. And without that team, they were the work across the firm could come to a stop. So who do you guys think this is? Just as a hint, that's not a lawyer. Okay, everyone's been saying IT. Okay, that is correct. That is correct. Now, this last one's quite tricky. So, okay, this person helps make sure the firm follows important rules and regulations. They identify potential risks before they can become a bigger problem. They work with teams across the business, and that's just not the lawyers. And their role helps protect both the firm and their clients. Oh, someone said HR. Oh, compliance, risk. Anyone else want to put a couple answers? Risk and compliance. Okay, yep, you're correct. That is risk and compliance. Perfect. Yep, and that's all. Perfect.
Thanks very much, Amraj. Okay, Alex, do you want to share your insights?
Of course, thanks very much, Steffi and Amraj. So we've got a small section here for you to get to know us a little bit better. And I can see the deck has, the presentation rather has a few questions for me to answer. So firstly, my journey into law. My journey into law, I think, began when I was around 14, and I came across an article regarding a judgment which was written by the Court of Justice of the European Union in Luxembourg. For those who may not be aware, within the European Union, the Court of Justice is the highest court in the land, and it resolves all matters related to EU law. And the judgment was a controversial one because it was relating to a open cast mine next to the border with the Czech Republic. The open mine was located within Poland, and the order of the court against the Polish government was that the mine had to be closed. And if the Polish government did not comply with the order, then for every day that the mine was open, the Polish government will have to pay the European Commission a penalty of 500,000 euros. That's the equivalent to 2.5 million Polish zloty. It's an astronomical amount, and it garnered a lot of political attention within Poland because of how big this penalty was. And when I saw this judgment, this article, I was completely fascinated with how powerful EU law is and how powerful courtrooms, court judgments and orders are by the judges. And I decided to write a letter to President Koen Lennart, who's effectively the Chief Justice of the Court of Justice within the Luxembourg Court. And my response, his response was for me to get in touch with his Chief of Staff. So presidents, prime ministers, chief justices, they've got chief of staff who are effectively the right-hand man often, who assist with resolving issues. And I was instructed to contact the president's chief of staff. And followingly, we were able to coordinate a one-on-one meeting between myself and the president when I was roughly 14. And we discussed all matters related to EU law. And following that meeting, this was back, I believe, in 2021, I was able to maintain a relationship with the members of the Court of Justice, including the president. And consequently, when I was 16, so this was back in 2023, shortly after I finished my GCSEs, I flew out to Luxembourg, and I was able to spend the day with the president. My day began with having a brief meeting with him and his chief of staff, roughly, I recall, at 9 o'clock. And then I was able to sit on a hearing in the public gallery in a matter concerning the European Commission and Deutsche Telekom regarding a competition matter on the niche point of law. And this was then followed by having a 90-minute lunch with the president. after the hearing. And looking back, this was probably one of the happiest days of my life, because not only was I treated like a VIP where I had a all access pass to the entire courtroom, that was the day which solidified my interest in law, and it made me realize actually, you know, law is my calling. And it's also the same day that I realized that actually disputes is fascinating, especially when it comes to EU matters, because it often concerns member states, different governments within the union. And I can proudly say that still to this day I maintain a relationship with the court. I think on LinkedIn you may be able to see I did a post where last February I flew out to Luxembourg again. I was able once again to have lunch with the president, so that I continue to maintain a relationship with the Court of Justice. And and then consequently, when I was in sixth form, I undertook a few work experience programs with international law firms in London. There's a charity called Prime Commitment, I believe it's called, and I was able to find a few work experience programs when I was in sixth form, and being physically present within a law firm when I was still in sixth form did confirm that working at a commercial law firm in London was the right choice for me. And then in September 2025, so yeah, just under a year ago, I sent my application to RPC. Or rather, September 2024, I sent my application to RPC. Last year in February, I received an offer following the assessment center where Steffi did my interview with me. And last September 1st, 2025, I started work at RPC, and the rest is history, if you will. Now, moving on to the second question, why I chose an apprenticeship. Of course, I'm sure you've heard there's plenty of different benefits of an apprenticeship. Of course, there's no debt involved. You've got boots on the ground in terms of having 6 years of experience within the legal industry before becoming a qualified lawyer. But I think for me, the biggest factor for choosing an apprenticeship is having that physical interaction with partners. I mean, ever since I joined the firm last September, I met plenty of partners, and every now and again I'll cold email one of the partners at the firm to say that I'm interested in the practice areas and hope that we can have potentially a quick 20-minute coffee chat, or even if I'm fortunate, we're able to have lunch. And in those situations, I'm able to sit down with a highly experienced partner. Usually partners at our firm have decades of experience, and have an intimate one-on-one conversation. And that sort of exposure, I mean, it's very difficult to come by if I were a full-time university student. And so I'm very fortunate to be on apprenticeship where I've got so much direct contact with partners. The third question, what I do in matter support. So at RPC, matter support is a central legal support unit where we receive instructions from all different practice groups around the firm, not just limited to our London practice group. We've got requests also coming from Bristol, also from Singapore and Hong Kong as well. I know a few of our team members, including myself, I was able to work on a Hong Kong dispute matter a few months ago. And really the bread and butter of matter support, the main 3 tasks that we do are engagement letters. So when clients come to us and they seek our legal advice, we'll send them an engagement letter. It's partially from a risk and compliance point of view, where we explain our duties, our obligations to our clients, but often the most important information for the client is our contact information, the lawyers who will be managing the certain matter for the client, and also our hourly rate as well. A second task which you often see are bundles. So bundles are a compilation of different documents heading often, but not always, heading to court. So an associate will instruct us and say, we need X amount of documents, and they'll make a nice index as to which documents they would like to see in the bundle. And then we'll collect it, paginate it, and prepare it. So there's one final PDF document to send often to our barristers, and then often to the court, so to the judge themselves. And then thirdly, the third task, which you often see, are disclosure reviews. So often in litigation, so in court cases, in a run-up to trial, there's an element, a stage called the disclosure. Disclosure is where the 2 different law firms involved representing the clients will exchange the different documents between each other. So theoretically, when it does come to trial, there are no surprises. We've seen all the evidence that the other party wants to present. And as apprentices, we often work with paralegals, sometimes associates as well, to determine whether certain relevance are relevant, or whether they're confidential and they should be withheld, because there are a certain category of documents which should be withheld. For example, legal correspondence. So, for example, emails, letters between RPC and our client that's legally privileged, we will withhold that, and that will not be part of disclosure. Looking at question number 4, a highlight of my apprenticeship so far. It will have to be my work on the Womblebond Dickinson case. I'll give a brief, well, I'll try my best to give a brief background to the matter. So a few years ago, a Norwegian billionaire called Mr. Christian CM. For those wondering how this billionaire has accumulated his wealth, it's all to do with oil. He owns an oil company in Norway. He owns a property in London, and this property is located within a small apartment complex. There's only 2 houses. It's his, and then there's a second landlord. And the Norwegian billionaire had a redevelopment plan, and the plan was to buy out the other landlord alongside with the plot of land where the house is located in, bulldoze the property down, and then build in its place a luxurious apartment complex valued at over £100 million. The property, for the record, was located in Kensington. It's in fact so central that it's roughly 15 minutes away from Buckingham Palace, for the record as well. And there were a few law firms which were involved. However, Womblebond Dickinson, another law firm here in the UK, was instructed by the Norwegian billionaire Mr. CM to represent him in negotiations with the other landlord. So the first step here was to buy out the other landlord, and Womblebond was asked to prepare the sales purchase agreement. We call this the SPA, and it was the agreement which would determine, effectively allow Mr. CM to have ownership of the other house. However, unfortunately, negotiations fell apart because of a certain clause which Womblebond insisted. And afterwards, the other landlord lost complete interest in this prospective redevelopment purchase, sale out, if you will. And then Mr. CM decided that the other landlord was not being reasonable, but rather his lawyers were being unreasonable. And so Mr. CM hired Winston Taylor to pursue a claim of professional negligence against Womblebond. And that's when Womblebond came to RPC, and we were instructed to defend them against this professional negligence claim. If I recall correctly, the professional negligence claim was at £75 million. So this Norwegian billionaire was asking for £75 million in compensation, an astronomical amount. And I was, if you will, I was drafted in the last 2 months in the run-up to trial, where this matter was ongoing for a few years now. And when it came to the proceedings, the written proceedings, we objected to practically everything which Winston Taylor proposed. We objected the evaluation that this property would have made Mr. CM over £100 million. We thought that the numbers don't add up to amount to this volume of money. We also objected to the fact that Mr. CM would not receive planning permission. So when you want to build a property, any sort of structure, you need to receive planning permission from the local council. We also put forward the argument that the Kensington local council would not give Mr. CM the planning authority because of how vast the proposed apartment complex would have been. And in late March, we went to trial. It was a 3-week trial, hosted in the High Court. It was located just next to St. Paul's Cathedral, and we had the entire legal team assembled, and I was able to sit in for an afternoon, and it was for the cross-examination of Mr. Christian CM. For those who may not be aware, cross-examination is where the opposing party's barrister puts forward questions to the witness in the witness box, and I was able to sit in and watch the case unfold live. One anecdote which I like to share with family and friends regarding the case was that following the lunch break, so we concluded lunch for 12:30 roughly, and it was agreed that at 2:00 everyone would reconvene in the courtroom, and then the cross-examination of Mr. CM would continue. And so I arrived at the courtroom at around 1:30. The legal team, so both for the claimants, so for Mr. CM, which included Winston Taylor, and then for the defense, so RPC, the legal teams arrived around 1:45, and in that 2:00 sharp, the clerk or the usher said all rise, and then the judge arrived into the courtroom. He sat down, he had a look around the courtroom, and said, "Where's Mr. CM?" As it turned out, Mr. CM was running late from lunch, And so, needless to say, the judge wasn't too pleased about that. And I must say, it took both lawyers on both sides rather by surprise that he was late. So the moral of the story is don't be late to court because it's not good luck. And consequently, following the trial, I believe this was now looking at the date a month ago, the judgment came out by the High Court, and it was a stellar judgment. It was a knockout judgment because the judge effectively agreed with us on nearly all points except one. We were able to prove that Womble Bond was not negligent in the way that they conducted the transaction. We were able to prove that Mr. CM would not have received planning permission from the Kensington Authority because of how big this proposal was. It would not have been approved by the council. And so it was a massive victory for the firm, for our client, and it's a highlight for me because the case of Womble Bond, it was the first case where it felt like my victory because I know I played a huge part in the defense of it, assisting the associates and the partner in the run up to trial. And it also felt great to have our client vindicated because for law firms facing a claim of professional negligence, it's not just a risk and compliance issue, it's also a PR issue. And so vindicating our client, I mean, I can't quite put into words how great it felt when the judge handed down his judgment. It felt fantastic. And so that was probably the highlight so far. And I look forward to further cases where we win big.
Alex, thank you. All such great insights. I'm just conscious of time. We'll
Yeah,
go on.
I'm mindful of that as well.
No, but thank you. It's great insights. Okay, I just wanted to, Amraj, bring your program to life.
Yes, so yeah, I'll give you guys a bit of an insight into what actually brought me into law, why I chose RPC, what I actually do at RPC, and some of the challenges I've overcome. So what interested me in law was so it combines stuff such as problem solving, teamwork, and commercial awareness. And whilst I was in school, I enjoyed subjects which like encompass those sort of things. So whilst I was in school for my A levels, I studied economics, psychology, and philosophy. And in those subjects that they involved analyzing information, building arguments, and I also liked the idea of being able to help clients solve their business issues. And overall, and also with law, it offers like great insight into different sort of practice areas. So for example, you could go into transactional work, you could go into contentious work. So that very much appealed to me. So moving on, why did I choose RPC? So I chose RPC because of its strong reputation, and also its friendly culture, and also its commitment to developing junior lawyers such as myself. So one of the key factors was during my recruitment process, well, I'd say last year, everyone I met who I reached out onto LinkedIn, reached out through like RPC's Access Network, they were very supportive and approachable. And that made me think as a person who wants to start their legal career quite early through the apprenticeship route, this is the sort of place that I'd love to start it, a place where I feel comfortable going to ask questions, stuff like that, etc. And moving on, what do I do in my current seat? So as a first year solicitor apprentice, I'm sat in matter support. So what matter support is that it's ran through almost like an inbox system where apprentices like myself and Alex, we help every single legal team like within the firm. So for example, XYZ associate or partner will send a task into the inbox and that will get allocated to us. So, and I think that's a great way to start an apprenticeship. And because I know other apprenticeships start off in like a set seat in a different in a specific practice area, but we get quite a lot of broad exposure to all different practice areas, and that's really helped me improve my knowledge of the law. So, because being honest, the reason I actually chose the apprenticeship route was just because I knew like a base about like the legal profession, but I wasn't too educated on it. So the apprenticeships really helped me with that, and especially the matter support placement for my first year. And yeah, so that's kind of what we do. And the sort of tasks that we do is such as bundles, like Alex mentioned, document review, chronologies, and anything to just support the legal teams in general. So, okay, moving on to the next one. So far, what is the biggest challenge I've overcome? So this I actually give it quite a lot of thought. So the biggest challenge that I found that I've faced so far is the element of balancing full-time work 4 days a week and also studying towards like my law degree. So as a solicitor apprentice, you have many deadlines, exams, and also client work, which takes priority. And you can almost get confused on what to prioritize, when to do when, and it can also just become a lot. So yeah, and at the same time, that was a big struggle for me at the start. But then over time, started to develop my organization and time management skills, and this has like come better over time, and it's also helped me become a lot more disciplined and resilient. So yeah, that's been my biggest challenge, but I think that's also helped me build up quite a lot of my things that I'd call like my strengths now. So, okay, moving on to the last one. So, what's one thing that surprised me? So, what surprised me most was how friendly actually everyone is, and also how collaborative the legal profession actually is. So, before starting my apprenticeship, I kind of thought it'd be like everyone's working on their own sort of cases and stuff like that. But no, that's not how it was. Um, so what I found is like lawyers actually regularly work together across departments, share knowledge with each other, support one another, and that the reason for that is because I think collaboration actually leads to the best outcomes for clients and like in cases in general. So yeah, that's just a bit of an overview about myself and everything else. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thanks both. Yeah, really interesting insights into your sort of journey and your roles. Okay, so Alex, do you want to give a sort of a speedy over? I'm conscious of time. I have to give a bit of an overview speedily of like a sort of typical day, and then.
Indeed. Yeah, I'll try not to go off on a tangent this time around.
No, it's interesting.
In terms of day in the life, for us apprentices, we usually come into the office around 9:30. We've got sort of a very similar sort of routine in terms of saying hello to the entire team, checking our emails, creating a to-do list. We often like to prioritize tasks depending on urgency, and also the deadline that's looming. And also in the morning, often as lawyers do, we like to have a coffee as well. As you can see on the slide here, what I've drafted here is that on the particular day that I had in mind, I was working on a DSAR. So a DSAR is a data subject access request. Under the GDPR Act, the rules, individuals, including yourself, you have the right to request a copy of your data. Where the data subjects, for example, myself, I could request from a company, from a hospital, for example, a record of all the personal data that they've got on file. In such situations, we are approached to conduct a review to determine which documents are relevant or not from a personal data point of view. And often the way it works with the DSAR is that there's a first pass review conducted by apprentices, and this is where we will often determine relevancy, but then also redactions can also take place where if need to be, a certain document might have to be handed over, but for whatever reason, we can't show the entire document, so redactions can also take place. Consequently, as seen on this slide, a briefing with an associate regarding a bundle. So often, usually I find myself doing a bundle every few days. And I like to start drafting a bundle in the morning. I usually take an hour for lunch. And then I like to, once the bundle has been drafted, I like to send it to the associate for initial review. And whilst the associate is reviewing the bundle, because often they will have, almost always they'll have further comments to action amendments into the bundle, I like to be working on a separate matter. So on this day, I was drafting engagement letters whilst awaiting comments regarding the bundle. And in the meantime, when I finish the engagement letter, comments often can come in. And that's when I finalize the bundle, final amendments have been made, and then I often send them to chambers, so to our barristers or to a client via a platform called Box. So Box, it's a secure and encrypted way for us to send sensitive documents rather than attaching them onto an email. It's a safer way for us to pass sensitive and confidential documents. And then lastly, on the day in question here, I also conducted some research for off counsel within the real estate team, because he was going to have an interview with the Financial Times, so he wanted me to research a few new developments within the real estate field. And then usually I find myself finishing work between 5:45 and 6 p.m.-ish. That's usually when I'll be finishing work, but sometimes I might finish a bit earlier, a little bit later, but it's all depending on my workload for the day. If we can have please the second slide, I'll now discuss a little bit about the study day. So of course, as solicitor apprentices, we've got one day in a week to discuss to study towards our bachelor's in law. This is an example of how my day roughly looks like. Often there's always, every day when we're learning, there'll be a lecture for us to watch, roughly 2 hours. I like to have I also like to have a break between different tasks. So after watching a lecture, I like to have a 15-minute break before working on assignments. Assignments might include, for example, multiple choice questions, which we have currently in our contract law module. It might be essay writing, drafting a plan to answer a certain question. And so it depends often on what the tutor has assigned to us. And then usually I find myself at 1:30 to have, I usually like to take lunch then. And I also like to go for a nice run in the park. So I'm not always in my room. And then, as you can see on the screen here, I begin work on an SUT. So our university provider is the University of Law, and an SUT is a assignment which will be marked by one of the tutors, and we are required to complete them. Unfortunately, I can't recall what SUT stands for, but it's a way for us to practice our skills. It's a good way for us to get experience in answering questions before similar questions before the actual mock or the assessment in and of itself. So, for example, as previously mentioned, for contract, we've got multiple choice questions. So often for our SETs, there will be multiple choice questions which we have to complete so that we have familiarity with the way that multiple choice questions work. And then lastly, often I like to do a little bit of supplemental reading of textbooks. So there will be suggested readings for us to do. I like to read a little bit just to make sure I've covered all the information which we are required to know for a certain module. And with that said, I'll hand over quickly to Amraj. And I believe there's an office tour next.
Yeah, so I've just got some images of like the office and whereabouts where I work. So this is actually exactly where I work, where I'm sat right now. So as you can see in like the far left picture, we have quite an open plan office, and we also do hot desking. So that means you can sit next to almost like a different person every day. One day you can be sat next to a partner, another day you could be sat next to another apprentice. So that's great, and it just allows for collaboration and also just have good conversations with your colleagues. And in the middle, you also see there's a kitchen in every floor of the office where you can almost take a 15-minute screen break, as Alex also does on his study day. You can make a coffee, you can, I don't know, talk to people, and it's very like you can just have a chat with anyone that's really around there. And then the third one's just a bit of the view of the office. So yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Amraj. Hopefully brings to life what it looks like. But obviously on a quiet day there, but usually around. Okay, and then we just thought we'd kind of finish. This is the sort of end of the presentation section, but yeah, like a quick myth busting round. So for each statement, if you could put true or false in the Q&A section, and we'll see how many we can sort of bust before the end of the session. So we've got the first myth of you have to come from a wealthy or privileged background to become a lawyer. So what do we think? Indeed. Yeah, lots of false coming in. Yeah. Yes, I think, and Alex touched on this earlier, but yeah, and people enter law from all sorts of different backgrounds. So yeah, absolutely don't need to come from a wealthy or privileged background to become a lawyer. And that's what's brilliant as well about our apprenticeship route, reaching people who haven't been to university as well. Second one, so all lawyers spend their day in court. False. Yeah. Great. Yeah, lots of false. Oh yes, interesting. Someone's made the point about AI in the future. That's true. Yeah, so obviously remember the first like Q&A that we did, lots of people picture courtrooms when they think of lawyers, but in reality, many city lawyers don't always go to court, spend their time advising businesses, reviewing contracts and solving problems, helping clients make decisions. Alex, do you want to go do number 3?
Yeah, of course. Number 3. So you have to study law at university first. Of course, you're welcome to typing your answers in the chat. But I can confirm, of course, that you study law at university first. Of course, there's the apprenticeship route, and also on a side note as well, there are lawyers who studied a different subject at the university, and then they did a so-called law conversion course, which is a 1-year program where if you undertook a different subject at university as an undergraduate, you can convert to law. So that training contracts, vacation schemes, they become available to you. So now you don't have to study law at university to become a lawyer.
Brill. Thank you very much, Amraj.
Yep, so we'll move on to a bit of a controversial one. So the fourth one is AI will replace lawyers in the future. So just pop into the Q&A chat what you guys think. False. Okay, we've got one person saying false. Yeah, you guys are correct. So that is indeed false. So AI is already helping lawyers work more efficiently, but clients still need to have relationships and they still need people to make decisions, solve complex problems, and also relationships are a big thing, like a big part of like the legal profession itself. And yeah, so AI is actually changing legal careers, but it's unlikely to replace lawyers entirely. So now also moving on to myth number 5. You need to be naturally confident and outgoing to be a lawyer. So this is the last one, guys. What do we think? False. Yep. Okay. Yep. So yeah, it's indeed false. So law firms need lots of different types of personalities. So some lawyers love public speaking, others are brilliant researchers, writers, or problem solvers. So and just one thing that I will add, I don't think you need to be the loudest person in the room in order to succeed. So overall, yeah, it is false. You do not need to be a naturally confident and outgoing person to become a lawyer. Yeah.
Brill, thanks, Boo. Okay. Yeah, so if we obviously kind of come to 6, but if anyone has any kind of burning questions, we can obviously take a few. That was all.
And Finley, am I right in that questions would have to come through the Q&A function?
Yeah,
If any of you
as
have
long
any,
as, sorry,
if
go
any
on.
of you do, go on.
I was going to say, yeah, as long as the RPC team have got a few more minutes, just funnel them through the
Yeah,
Q&A panel, we can feed them through to the team.
no problem.
We've had one just come in from Malik. If I'm interested in working in international human rights law, is the solicitor apprenticeship at a city firm a suitable step? Based on what I've researched, most international human rights lawyers work in specialized organizations rather than commercial law firms.
Mhm.
I'm not sure who wants to take that one.
I'll take that one if I may. I think I'll say a few things to that. I think, first of all, if you're 16, 17 and you're already deciding what you want to do, that might be quite early to decide. I did human rights at university, wanted to pursue that, but then decided it wasn't really for me. If you are dead set on that and very, very comfortable that that's the right decision, I think it is more tricky for you to find a permanent career in human rights if you've come through 6 years of solicitor apprenticing in corporate law, if I'm honest. Having said that, qualifying into a corporate law firm can often bounce you into other careers. And there are, for example, within corporate law firms, pro bono functions, corporate responsibility functions, etc., that some of the qualified corporate lawyers will then move into, which would include human rights law. But if your thing is, I really want to do human rights law now, and I'm really certain on that, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that a corporate law firm would be the most straightforward way to do that. Steffi, I don't know if you...
Yeah, I would agree with sort of everything you've said there. I think like keeping that kind of broader options.
And I would do your sums as well. I would have a look at what the salary might be, and just compare that with the financial ease of your life were you to move into corporate law. It's worth doing those numbers, I think.
Next question, we've got one from Raphael. Pass this on to you, Steffi. What would you recommend doing to stand out in the application process for any degree apprenticeship in general, especially a solicitor apprenticeship?
Yes, that's a common question. I think my biggest piece of advice probably would be to focus on kind of demonstrating your potential rather than, trying to sound like a lawyer. So we're looking for things like curiosity, communication skills, teamwork, resilience, and organization, that sort of thing. And those skills can come from school, from, sports activities that you do, from like clubs, hobbies, part-time jobs, responsibilities at home, just lots of different areas. So, I think if you can have those sort of examples and bring those areas to life, then that's something that make you stand out. I think it's also important to do a bit of research, so you do understand, like, and attending programs like the City Century program that is running is brilliant, but important to do a bit of research to understand what a solicitor apprenticeship involves and why it appeals to you. Because I think strong candidates don't just kind of say what they've done, but they can explain what they've learned from experiences. So I'd say things like that.
That's great. Thank you, Steffi. And then we've got one each for Amraj and Alexander, which probably brings us to quite a nice natural close. So I'll start with you, Amraj. Someone's asked in saying, would they be correct in saying you did philosophy, psychology, and economics at A level? Would you say they've aided you, particularly subjects like economics, or would you have chosen different subjects had you had the opportunity to choose those again, knowing what you know now?
Yeah, so I did do philosophy, economics, and psychology, and they have definitely aided me, but I'd say my best advice when picking A-level subjects is just do something you enjoy. It's very early, and I think A-level subjects, no matter what you choose, help you develop skills which can translate into any career that you like. For example, through philosophy, I learned a lot of critical writing. Economics, I learned lots of theories which are applicable to, like, I don't know, corporate and commercial work. And overall, like, I'd say if you choose any subject, you develop those skills, and they will be directly like transferable into law, finance, or like someone was saying they want to do human rights law, they'll learn a bit about that into like politics or a subject like that. So yeah, but I think overall they definitely did. And if I was to go back, I love my subjects, so like I wouldn't change them. And I think that's like a good philosophy on how to like choose your subjects essentially.
That's great. Thank you very much. And then
Yeah.
one for you, Alexander. A lot of people are interested about the anecdote that you told and how you've managed to sort of liaise and network with people so high up. So what were you doing? How were you making those connections to make that sort of experience possible?
Well, I think it really came down to the fact that I sent a letter and the fact that how young I was, because I sent the letter when I was 14. And in my letter, all I really sort of wrote was a little bit about myself, that I'm interested in the law. And I did put forward one question. The question was, what makes a competent EU lawyer? And sort of my response, the response I got from the call was very brief. It was just simply, please get in touch with my chief of staff on this phone number. And last time I saw the president last March, I did ask him, so what made you sort of want to have a meeting with me? Because he could have easily simply wrote back in his letter, so the response back, and the president's reply was, well, we've never had someone as young as you contact the court. And I thought to myself, I just have to meet this individual. And so I think I just stood up because of how young I was and the fact that I wrote a letter. I get the impression that when you write a letter, people feel more compelled to reply to that because you put a little bit more effort to it. You send it by the post. I sent my letter all the way to Luxembourg in this case. And they felt a bit sort of more compelled to reply back. Whereas if you reach out to LinkedIn, that's quite a common method. It can be successful, but I think I just stood up by the fact that how young I was and that I wrote a letter.
I think something I would say as well from my sort of experience over the past couple of years trying to secure a solicitor apprenticeship in terms of using your network, don't underestimate the value of people on your level as well, because it's obviously amazing to have these people in really high up places, but actually reaching out to people like Amraj and Alexander who have just been through the process, a year or two before you, their knowledge is going to be firsthand. They're going to have been through the process. They'll probably give you a little bit more of an honest, less rehearsed experienced sort of talk about, this is the parts I found really quite tough. These are the parts I found a bit easier. I know that my colleagues in my cohort found this bit really tough and this bit really easy. So also really bear in mind when you're making LinkedIn profiles, if you're trying to liaise with people, the people who are going to be sort of on a similar level to you a couple of years apart are going to give you just as valuable insight from a completely different perspective as well. I don't know if you'd add anything to that, Patrick.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say, Finn. The other thing I was going to add is never underestimate how out of touch old people like me are. Because we're operating at this level, and actually on the tactical day to day, what it's actually like, we might be horribly out of date. So, my version of what Finn is saying is, literally go onto LinkedIn, type in solicitor apprentice into the search button, and make a bunch of connections there. Do the same thing with early careers person and find people that way. But just also bear in mind that Steffi probably sees thousands of applications every year, and she might not be able to meet everybody. So I call you Steffi.
I quite like it. You're the German, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, sorry, Steffi. Early careers teams members do get lots and lots of requests, so they won't be able to reply to all of you, and sometimes they just don't want to because it shows favoritism. But people that have made it into your role 1, 2, 3 years ahead of you, I think, are really worth tapping up. That's not to say that you should all ask to have coffee with Amraj and Alexander, because they also have work to do, but they might say, a couple of them might say yes, you never know. And if it helps, just to give you a sense, I get 5 to 10 requests every single day for connections, so it becomes quite difficult for me to say yes to all of those.
Last question, and we've got one for Steffi to close us. Lucy's asked about the ideal qualities of candidates that you've mentioned. How are you spotting those from the early careers perspective in an interview setting, and what do you think shows that in an answer these candidates really understand what you're looking for?
Yeah, I think, I suppose we don't usually assess these qualities by just so I mentioned kind of resilience, teamwork, etc. We don't usually assess them by just asking someone, are you resilient and are you good at teamwork? Instead, we'd ask candidates to tell us about real examples that they've had. So examples of when they've worked in a team or overcome a challenge, or we might kind of set out a scenario and what they might do in that scenario. So it's more of a kind of like future focused type scenario. And I suppose what helps build confidence is when a candidate can clearly explain the situation, like what they did or what they would do, and what the kind of outcome was, what they learned from it, etc. So it's never kind of like looking for the perfect answers or huge achievements. It's just often that kind of reflection and self-awareness that can help us understand someone's potential. So.
Would you recommend to convey that in an interview using something like the STAR technique?
Yes, always the STAR technique is a great way to structure answers. Yes, a big fan of the STAR technique.
So for those of you who don't know, you'd be looking at the situation that you were in, the task that you had to do, the action you took, and then the result that you had on whether it be a team, whether it be a personal setting, and that's a really easy structure to convey it if you're in something like an interview setting. Other than that, that brings our session to a close.
And Finn, if I may just go in. Can people on this call see the Q&A?
I believe people can see it'll come up as anonymous, and they should be able to see the answered ones in the chat. Yes.
Well, I've just typed in as an answer to one of the questions, which was where can we find the schedule, what we're doing. I've put in there a LinkedIn post that I put up a few months ago that explains my understanding of how, in a recruitment process, someone like Steffi and her team will be looking for certain skills and how you can match up your experience to what they're looking for. So it's a little, 7-minute video that I think is relatively useful just to give you sort of